Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the shop. I wanted to get right into this video today. You clicked on the thumbnail, so let's get into it. It's a 16 by 20 garage build that I did in 2 days. It was 3. The first day I was supposed to be there, the lumber yard had already showed up and delivered all the lumber directly onto the slab. The slab was also there for a couple years and needed cleaned up. So the first day I moved all the material into the yard. You can see that's where it's at now. And I cleaned up the slab. I shut her down for the day. Figured we'd get a fresh start the next day. So getting the walls going first thing in the morning. This was back in like May, and it was incredibly cool out in the morning. But that quickly changed. It got pretty hot that day. So I built the sidewalls in 2 10-foot sections. It's easier to stand. I have stood 20-foot walls before by myself. It's not fun, and I'm getting old, so what can you do? Here we are getting ready to throw, brought the leaf blower. Helps keep things tidy. It's better than a broom. There, apparently I'm getting some of the weeds out of the way and putting down my sill seal, the sill gasket. A lot of people ask what that is, and it's just a foam gasket that goes between the bottom plate and the concrete. Gives you a little bit of, I wouldn't say it's really super waterproof, but it helps to keep air out. So, first wall going up. All right, from here, we got some walls going, and I'll probably keep my yap shut for most of the time here. I'll let you guys watch. If you do have any questions, drop them down below. Obviously, I will have to answer them later. Can't talk to you right now because I'm not actually here. All right, since this back wall was only 16 feet, it didn't have any seams in the plates. Figured it was stout enough, small enough, and I was strong enough that I could stand it. And I didn't have too much issue with it. So back wall goes up, and then because I put the California corners on the eave walls, I have some meat to actually nail to. So you pull the plates together, line them up on the outside, make sure they're flush across the top, and nail them up. I like to do that a lot of times like on these smaller garages because it goes pretty quick to do the half of the side walls and then do the back wall to kind of hold everything together. Now I know it's not going to go anywhere, it's not going to fall on me. I do have a garage, like one of the first garage build videos I did. I actually walked away and was running to get some bracing because it was really windy. Walls fell over. That was fun. All right, service door header. I like to make sure that I get the header nailed to the king studs first because it leaves you room. A lot of times there's a stud that's right next to the king stud and then you're like nailing it at an angle because that stud's in the way, especially if you put the top plate on. So I like to get the header in, nailed to the king studs, run the rest of the studs, nail it to the top plate, then you're good to go. There's not going to be anything in the way. You've already done all the assembly. Obviously, you get a bunch of nails through the top plate into the header, and then I'll run my jack studs here and then get ready to lift it. This 10-foot wall with the header in it usually is about the heaviest wall out of all of them. Even seems more unwieldy than the 16-foot wall even. Maybe I'm just getting old. All right, sidewalls for the garage door header. Obviously, I didn't even show the assembly on those. That's just some measurements. You just figure out where your header is going to land. To make it a 7-foot door, the header has to occupy the space of the first top plate. So when I drop the header in, it'll line up from the top plate straight across, and then the double top plate goes across the sidewalls and then across the header. So the header will only have the single plate, but it doesn't matter because it's a header. It does not need 2 plates. You do want 1 plate on it though. I think it helps to keep it from hinging at the side. Here we go. This is where I show off the muscles to everybody and drop that header in. I think it was a 9-foot door, so that's like a 9'9" header. Yeah, see, proud of myself. 9'9" header because you've got 3 inches of jack studs on either side, and then you'll get 1.5 inches for trim. The trim is a 2x6 that is protrudes past the wall, so then the siders can wrap it in metal. Give you something to run J-channel and caulk to. Yeah, we go through and nail up everything else up top, get all my seams put together, and then it's time for top plates. So since my sidewalls are 2 10-footers, I assumed I had nothing but 10-footers for plates, so I split that seam with 10s. So you don't have anything, you can't have your seams line up. I've pointed it out in videos before, but you can't have your seams line up or else your garage will fall over. Not necessarily exactly, but it's good practice anyway. All right, now we are putting some angle braces on the wall so we can rack them up plumb. I usually just use some screws because it's temporary. It's easier to put the screws in and pull screws out than it is to bang nails. So I've got my big old level here, my 10-footer. Put a link in the description if you want to pick one up. I actually did a video review on the level. Stabila 10-footer. They're not cheap. They're like $400 if you want to pick one up. They're really helpful and they're really nice levels. So you just kind of check it, kick the bracing around a little bit. It's easier to do with 2 people, obviously, but it can be done with 1. I think I've proven that. So you have a screw in the top plate, and then once it's plumbed in, you put one in the bottom, and then you put one somewhere in the middle to hold everything. I like to make sure I do that after I've got the plates bolted down because it makes everything, you know, more rigidier. All right, now we go with an angle brace from the top plate of one side down to the bottom plate of the other side. Now this I do nail at the top because it doesn't get pulled until everything is built, and it's a little easier just to bang the nails out than it is to pull screws once the sheathing is on the rafters. I like to use whatever I have available, usually the door trim, and get a good overlap on it so it's nice and solid. And you want to make sure that you're putting it on a relatively straight wall, and then drop it in about the center of the plate because you're going to have to move it in or out, and you need to make sure that you have still some room to anchor it to that plate, which will get screwed down because it's temporary. Plus, since you have to kind of eye it on your own and then screw it blindly, it's nice to use screws in case you have to back them out and readjust, which obviously I had to do a couple times on this one. 3 times? Come on, dummy. You're quicker than that. All right, now that that wall is nice and straight, we run our ceiling joists. These are actually just ceiling ties because it's not an actual ceiling, so they don't call them ceiling joists, but I call them ceiling joists, and you can't tell me what I can and can't call them. So I'm calling them ceiling joists. They're every 4 feet, so we're running them at 4, 8, 12, 16. So there are 4 of them. So with a 20-foot wall, I like to put one brace in the middle, especially if you put it on the wall that has the door header in it. Everything is relatively solid and straight. You can get away with one brace. And then run the 4 joists. I attach them to the opposite wall that I had just eyeballed and straightened. And I keep them about 1/4 of an inch in from the outside of the plate. That way I have something to eye down. If you run them all the way out, it obscures your view. I like to use, a lot of times, just 3-inch framing screws. GRK framing screws. I know, like, I think Home Depot, Lowe's and stuff carry their own brand of them. I don't know what's going on there. I must have had a phone call or I glitched. I'm not sure. So I kind of like to run them with screws because when you use nails a lot of times they'll blow apart because you're just toenailing everything. So once you get those up, you eye up that wall just like the other one, and then you hit the other side. So you have a wall nice and straight, tied down to a bottom plate, and then the top plate of that wall gets anchored across to the other wall. Nothing's going anywhere. Now if you're doing a bigger garage, a wider garage, use more bracing, more angle bracing. A lot of times guys will actually angle brace both walls and then run their joists. You can do that too if you'd like. When you do trusses, you have to, because it doesn't work other than that. Just real quick, we're going to get the OSB on the walls here. All the time in the comments, people like to say you're supposed to run it horizontally. On an 8-foot wall, you can run it vertically with no issue. I dare say it's better because it gives you a full perimeter nailing, all the way up and down the sides, across the bottom, across the top. Full perimeter gets nailed solid all the way around. If you run horizontally, obviously you have 16 inches where there's no nail. I know that is the strength axis, but you're not walking on a wall. So if you are over 10 feet or over 8 feet, I would recommend running them horizontally, and that's what I do. About an 8-foot wall, run them vertically. Goes quicker, and I think it's just as solid, if not more solid. Now I'm short, I can't reach the top when I nail, so I tack off everything I can, then I go back through with a ladder and blast them all the way across the top plate. That's what gives you your shear strength on a wall. It's nailed to the top plate, nailed to the bottom plate, nailed all the way down the sides, not going anywhere. All right, time to cut rafters. Obviously it got really hot out because my clothing kept getting smaller. I apologize for that, or whatever. I think this is all the farther I stripped down in this video though, so don't have to worry about that. If you want to see how to lay out a rafter, I have a video about that. I put up a card. You can check that out. I don't know if I explain it in good detail, but I explain it the way I do it. And it's worked for me. So if you can get into this head, maybe you'll understand what I mean. But this is just showing a few of them. I get these cut, and I get these all stacked, and then we get ready to set some rafters. Always make a cut for a pattern. Try to get a decent board to use as a pattern, and always pattern off that singular board. If you continue to trace a different one every time, you can get run out. So it keeps your variations in the rafters to a minimum by using a single pattern. Two foot on center rafters, so I think that means 11 per side on a 20-foot wall. Here is my temporary brace to hold up my ridge. I have a video that shows how I do all of this. You just gotta math a little bit to figure out where you want to put your ridge, and when you get it figured out, you want to hold it down a couple inches. In my estimation, that's what I like to do, because it's easier to lift the ridge up to get your rafters attached than it is to push it down when there's something solid there. So hold it down just a little bit, and you can always lift it up. This is a 4-pitch on a 16-foot wide garage. The rafters are pretty tiny. So the ones for the gable, I like to try to make sure are nice and straight. And ones that are on breakers for the OSB, I try to make sure there's no bark on them. Put the bark in the ones where they're not going to be breaking. Just makes life easier. You don't have them slipping off or anything. You don't have to scab on a 2x4, which is perfectly fine, but I don't like to do it on a garage because garages normally don't ever get finished, and then you've got a scabby 2x4 you're staring at all the time. And then you're like, man, that framer was an idiot. And well, I'd agree. He's smart enough to try to make sure you don't have scabby 2x4s. So I try to avoid that. Plus, nice straight ones on the gables. Keep the gables nice and straight. Make eyeing them up easier. If you put a big crooked rafter up there, you're going to be fighting, tugging, and pulling it to try to get it nice and straight. Your siders will thank you. Your roofers will thank you because it's hard to bend drip edge. All right, I start at the gable, hit him at the top. Tops first, and then the bottoms. I like to use, again, framing screws when I'm setting the ridge, because if something's off, I can pull the screws out and, you know, reset, recombobulate myself. Do the two at the gable, and then two towards the end. I don't really like to do them if they break right on the seam. I like to go back one. It's difficult to try to pound the next ridge in between the two rafters, if that makes any sense. I do have a video where I show how I set them all. I think it is sped up or time-lapsed, but I think it's basically the full video. So you can see how long it actually takes me. Smaller garages, they're quick and easy. Bigger garages, it's a hassle. Your rafters that are on joists, usually rule of thumb is to get like 3 nails between the rafter and the joist one way, and then a couple more nails going the other way. I'm not here to discuss codes and what I think is overkill and not, but around here, that's what the inspectors like to see. 3 through one way, 2 through the other way. So here's my second section of ridge. It's just sitting on my prop at the gable wall, and then I think I'm just screwing it together at the seam. You got to make sure that they're attached because you don't want that to come down and knock you in the head, or, you know, take out a shoulder or something. So this is pretty much it. You just got to, again, when you're setting the ridge, set them up top first, and then attach them at the wall. I'll let you guys take this all in, throw a comment, question down below, and I'll address anything that you guys want to know that I'm not addressing in this commentary. There we go, easy peasy, and that's the end of day one. On to day two. Right off the bat, setting a ridge prop on here, which actually happens to be right in line with the gable stud. So you get the, I like to get the ridge prop in and then get the angle brace in. The angle brace ties the wall up to the ridge, keeps it nice and plumb. Also gives it stability. Once the roof is sheathed, gives that back wall stability. It would be, see, you just got to kind of get it where it needs to be. Gives it stability. It would be the same as a stringer, stiff back, a rat run. Garages don't call for them. They don't always get them. A lot of times they do when they have usually more framing, more joists and such. But these little accessory buildings, we don't bother with them. You just get an angle brace from the ridge down to the gable wall. Gonna run some king posts and collar ties. Every set of rafters that does not have a joist gets a collar tie. Collar ties go up top. They're supposed to stop uplift. We're not in a storm area. If we do get a storm, it's a tornado, and that collar tie ain't saving anything, buddy. And then king posts tie the joist up to the ridge. I like to try to kind of give them a little bit of a tug up when I nail them. I think you could probably see right here, just a little bit of a help up to give it a bit of a crown. I don't know if it helps, makes me feel good though. All right, I already had the plate laid out when I did my top plates and whatnot. I got everything laid out. That was not on camera, but that's simple enough. It's just pulling tape measures and getting everything laid out for future reference. No sense in being up on a ladder twice up there. A lot of times I'll run it with a pick, but this garage was so small, didn't even want to pull it out. I couldn't even use it on two sides anyway because of all the foliage and dead trees and probably bodies. I don't know what was in that stuff. This wasn't the greatest part of town. Plumb up on the long points. It's just rule of thumb, every measurement comes from the long point because they get angled. 4 pitch is like 19 degrees, I think. So you just cut them at a bevel. You got to grab the right ones. I think I had the wrong ones there. Then somewhere in here, I think a neighbor comes by to yap with me. He kind of interrupts my whole flow. Ended up talking to him for like 10 minutes, so back in the groove. Get the rest of these knocked out. Toed in the bottom, one up into the rafter, and then one toed down through the rafter. You don't want to put too many nails in them because you'll split them, and you could split the bottom of the rafter too. OSB on the door side of a small garage like this is pretty simple because you can just kind of hold it and nail it. When they get bigger, sometimes you got to put some blocking on that door, you know, below the header so they can sit on there. Got to get creative working alone. You know, little blocks of wood are a lot cheaper than, you know, paying somebody 20 bucks an hour as a helper. So little blocks of wood put a lot of people out of business over the years. Made them without a job. All right, we wrap up this front, go on to the back. Onto the roof. I've explained before that I like to pop a line, then I drive nails into the line so I can push my first row of OSB up to those nails and tack it off. I usually hook the end of the rafter and go about 46 3/4 of an inch. Gives me just enough overhang that I can push my fascia up underneath the OSB. Don't ever walk the plate of a wall. It's highly not recommended. This is why I hire a stuntman and do a lot of CGI on my jobs. I was at home on my couch while this was going on. This didn't actually happen. But I like to pop the line, and then at each end of the OSB, where I know the OSB will land, I just tack a nail right on that line. So I push the OSB up to the nail. I know it's on my line. You're good to go. The first sheet, I like to mark 4 feet in from the outside, and then I mark 4 feet on my sheet. So right on that rafter where it's marked 4 feet, I can drop it right there, right where it needs to be. All I've got to do is hit the bottoms. Up nice and tight, hit the bottoms. We are moving and grooving, guys. Like I said, 2 days to get this thing framed. I wish I could have taken it all the way. I wish I could have done the siding on it too, which siding probably would have taken me 3 days. Ridiculously, but I'm a lot faster framer than I am a sider. I have framed way more than I have ever sided. So this being 20 feet, we go with a full 8-footer. We finish with a 4, and then it'll be a 4 up top to start from the back side again, and finish with 2 fulls, and then it's just on to rips because it's such a small garage. Simplicity is nice. Get my rips in. This side's done. I don't think I had a camera angle for the other side, so I think we're going to move probably right past that, because there was a jungle on the other side. I had nowhere to go. Yep, fascias. I like to put a block on the fascia so I can butt it right up against the rafter. I know it's right where it needs to be. Then I just push it up underneath the OSB. Nail it off. Fight me a little bit here, so you gotta get underneath it, get some more leverage sometimes. All it gets is that 2x fascia underneath stays open because it gets a vented soffit. A lot of people ask that too. A lot of homeowners always ask that. But nope, this isn't the 1950s. We don't cover everything with BC plywood and stuff. You get metal and soffit. You want stuff to breathe. Helps to save your roof. Rake fascias, I like to get a measurement on them sometimes. You can get pretty close. I stay a little shy of being dead on because then you're going to be making cuts. You're better off to leave a little gap at the top that the ciders will float with metal anyway. Sometimes you got to run some screws in to straighten out the cruddy boards that the lumberyard sends you. But 2x6 nailed in the end, right flush with the OSB is how these are done. Flush with the top of the OSB, I should point out. And then when the roofers do it, they will put the drip edge right onto that 2x6 and run shingles. This gets rake boards. It does not get fly rafters. I've done garages with fly rafters. You can check those videos out. So we're basically framed up, and now we are trimming out the overhead door with 2x6s on either side. I'm apparently lost. That's not surprising. I get lost quite a bit. Two by 6 goes flush to the inside, so it sticks out about 1.5 inches. Wrap it with metal with a little Z-bend to it. You run your J-channel right up against it, caulk to it. That's the way to do it. I mean, you could trim them differently. You could put a flat 2x4 if you wanted a thicker trim. And a lot of times I've done that when I'm doing a detached garage that's going to match the house or something like that. Match some other accessory building, I'll match the trim. But if it's a standalone, especially on a cheap one like this, the guy wanted to be able to park his Kia in it and store a lawnmower basically. So it's just an accessory building. They go up cheap. Top gets a 2x6 also, and we're moving on to the door. Service door is pretty self-explanatory. You get it. It's a service door. I'm sure if you guys are watching this video this far into this, you've done a service door or two before. The problem a lot of times on a garage is if there's a pitch to the slab, if you really want to plumb the service door in, it won't work right. So you almost have to leave it a little out of plumb so it sits on the slab properly and functions properly. It seems like an overly fancy door for this garage, but this was like an overbuy by the supplier, and they were given to the contractor really cheap. So you can't complain about that, I guess. So he was picking up some decent double drilled doors for not too much. Make sure it's functioning, get the brick mold attached, and then everything else will attach with screws through the jamb. That's what gives you the security. The striker side, there's long screws that go through, so you either hold it tight or you throw a couple shims in and run those in. And then on the hinge side, which is not nearly really as important, they don't really ever boot your hinge side of your door when they're trying to break in, but you run some long screws through that too into the jack stud and king stud. That's as solid as you're going to get them. You know, there's not a lot you can do if somebody wants in your garage. They'll get in. Just shims, screws, adjusting, shimming, screwing, adjusting, shimming, screwing, adjusting. Sometimes they take a while. This one is actually didn't cause me too much consternation. That made me sort of happy. Shimming, screwing, adjusting. That's it. Give you the little last walk around video that I had off the job, and 16 by 20 in really under 2 days. Like I said, the first day I was supposed to start, I ended up cleaning up the job site and moving material. Frustrated me, but I charged the contractor for it. So second day, I got there nice and early, got rolling on it. When I move the material, it's nice because I get to stage it the way I want it. So, I mean, if you have to handle it twice, make it worth your while. So I was, let's see, I mean, I had nothing but a pile of material in the yard, and by the end of day one, I had rafters up. So I want to say it was 1 o'clock, day 2, that I got framed up and got out of there. So that was the full build video. If you follow the channel, you may have seen the poll I had put up a few days ago at the release of this video of, do you want to see a 4-hour-long video with no narrative? Which is what this video was. So I did 4x speed on it to save everybody the agony of trying to watch a video like that, and figured I would sit here with you guys and go over it. I don't know how the audio actually came out on this. Hopefully the compressor noise was not too egregious and overwhelming. I'll try to hopefully have that taken care of in post. You guys know because you just watched. I don't know because I haven't done it yet. So any other comments or questions, drop them down below. I will be glad to answer them. I try to answer pretty much every comment unless one slips past the goalie and I don't see it. I usually respond to all of them like within 24 hours unless I'm really tied up doing something else. So if my math works out right, if you're watching this video the Saturday morning that it releases, I'm probably in Nashville. So if you're around the Nashville area and you want to go towards Broadway, I'm probably around there if you want to find me. Probably the Bourbon Street Blues and Boogie Bar or the 3rd floor of Tootsie's. So maybe I'll see you there. Until then, watch this video. YouTube thinks you're going to like it. I think you're going to like it. It's actually my favorite video. See you guys. That's not my favorite video. I don't even know what video it is they just showed you.